The clock on the wall mocked me with each passing second. 11:47 p.m. Sarah should have been home 3 hours ago. I sat on our leather couch, the one we'd picked out together on our 5th anniversary, and stared at my phone. The screen was dark now, battery dying from the dozens of unanswered calls I'd made. My thumb hovered over her contact photo, her bright smile from our vacation in Cancun last year, hair whipping in the ocean breeze, eyes full of life and love. Or so I'd thought. Traffic, I muttered to myself. She's just stuck in traffic. But even as the words left my lips, I knew they rang hollow. Sarah worked as a marketing director at Pemberton and Associates downtown. Her office was 20 minutes away on a bad day. It was now approaching midnight. I'd already called her office. No answer. I'd texted her best friend, Monica, who seemed genuinely confused and promised to reach out. I'd even considered calling the hospitals, but something stopped me. Some instinct I couldn't quite name whispered that this wasn't about an accident or emergency. The house felt different without her. Too quiet. Too empty. The dinner I'd prepared, her favorite chicken parmesan, sat cold and congealed on the kitchen counter. I'd planned tonight carefully. We'd been distant lately, ships passing in the night, and I wanted to reconnect. I'd left work early, stopped by the Italian bakery she loved, even picked up a bottle of the wine we discovered on her honeymoon. Instead, I sat alone in the dark, watching headlights occasionally sweep across our living room window. Each time hoping it was her car pulling into the driveway. My mind wandered to the past few months. Sarah had been different. Not drastically, but in small ways that accumulated like snowflakes before an avalanche. She'd started working later, attending more client dinners. She'd become protective of her phone, angling it away when I walked by, taking calls in other rooms. When I'd mention it, she'd laugh it off, kiss my cheek, tell me I was being paranoid. "You know how demanding this job is, Mark," she'd say. "I'm up for partner next year. I need to put in the hours." And I'd believed her, because that's what you do when you love someone. You trust them. You give them the benefit of the doubt. 1:23 a.m. Still nothing. I called her phone again. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's Sarah. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you." Her cheerful voice felt like a slap. "Sarah, please. I'm worried sick. Just let me know you're okay. I don't care where you are or what you're doing. I just need to know you're safe. Please call me." I ended the call and let my head fall into my hands. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of building a life together. We'd weathered storms before my father's death, her miscarriage, my period of unemployment during the recession. We'd always come through stronger, more connected. But this felt different. At 2:15 a.m., I finally moved from the couch. My back ached, and my eyes burned with exhaustion and unshed tears. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, each step heavier than the last. The room smelled like her perfume, that Chanel fragrance I'd bought her last Christmas. Her jewelry box sat open on the dresser, the antique necklace from her grandmother catching the moonlight from the window. I couldn't bring myself to get into bed. Instead, I sat on her side, running my hand over her pillow. That's when I noticed her laptop, partially hidden under a stack of magazines on her nightstand. Sarah always took her laptop to work. Always. It was practically grafted to her hand. My heart began to pound. I shouldn't look. I should respect her privacy. That's what a good husband would do. But a good wife would have come home. A good wife would have at least sent a text. I reached for the laptop, my hands trembling, and opened it. The screen flickered to life, and I was greeted with her email inbox. She'd left it open. My eyes scanned the preview panes of various messages. Work correspondence, shopping confirmations, newsletter subscriptions. And then I saw it, a message from someone named Chris. The subject line was blank, but the preview text made my blood run cold. Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about. The rest was cut off. I clicked on the message. My entire world tilting on its axis. My hands shook so violently, I nearly dropped the laptop. The email filled the screen, each word a dagger to my chest. Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you, about us. When you walked through that door, I knew everything was about to change. You're incredible, Sarah, the way you handle everything with such grace and strength. I know this is complicated, but we'll figure it out together. See you tomorrow night? Same place? See, the message was dated 3 days ago. I scrolled down, finding Sarah's response. Tomorrow works. Same time, and Chris ... Thank you for understanding, for being there when I needed someone, and can never know about this. Mark, me. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. The bedroom walls seemed to close in around me. 10 years. 10 years of marriage, and she was having an affair. The woman I'd loved since we were college sophomores. The woman I'd built my entire adult life around, was betraying me with someone named Chris. I clicked frantically through her inbox, finding more messages. They went back months. The early ones were innocent enough work-related discussions, friendly banter. But they evolved, growing more intimate, more secretive. Inside jokes. Compliments that crossed professional boundaries. References to our special place, and when we're finally together. My stomach churned. I lurched to the bathroom and dry heaved over the toilet, nothing coming up but bile and heartbreak. When the spasm subsided, I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. The man looking back at me seemed like a stranger older, more broken than I'd realized. I returned to the bedroom and continued my investigation, hating myself for it, but unable to stop. I opened her text messages on the laptop. She had them synced through some cloud service. There were dozens from Chris. She'd even added a heart emoji to the contact name. The texts were worse than the emails. More frequent. More personal. Photos of dinner plates at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. A selfie of Sarah laughing, looking happier than I'd seen her in months. Messages confirming meetup times, discussing hotels, planning a weekend trip to wine country, when we can get away. One text from 2 weeks ago stopped me cold. I think I'm falling for you. Is that crazy? I never expected this when we started working together. Sarah's response. Not crazy. I feel it too. This thing between us ... It's real, Chris. More real than anything else in my life right now. I read those words 3 times, each reading driving the knife deeper. More real than anything else in her life. More real than our marriage. More real than the vows we'd taken in front of our families and friends. More real than the decade we'd spent building a home, a future, a partnership. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the laptop through the window. Instead, I sat in numb silence as the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains. It was 6:17 a.m. Sarah had been gone for more than 10 hours. My phone buzzed. A text message. From her, stayed at Monica's. Needed space. Home soon, Monica. The friend I'd contacted last night, who'd seemed genuinely confused about Sarah's whereabouts. Either Monica was an exceptional liar, or Sarah had just lied to both of us. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and searched for divorce attorneys in our area. My fingers moved mechanically, clicking through websites, reading reviews, making notes. Patterson and Hughes had excellent ratings. So did the Grayson Legal Group. I bookmarked several, my heart turning to stone with each addition to my list. Then I did something I'd never imagined I'd do. I opened a document template and began drafting a message, not a divorce petition itself, but something to send with them. Something to make sure Sarah understood exactly what she'd destroyed. Sarah, I typed. I know about Chris. I know about the emails, the texts, the lies. I know you weren't at Monica's last night. I know our marriage has been a facade for months while you've been building something more real with someone else. I'm done. By the time you read this, I'll have filed divorce papers. Don't bother explaining. Don't bother apologizing. There's nothing left to say. I saved the document and sat back, feeling both empty and strangely relieved. A decade of my life was ending, but at least the uncertainty was over. At least I knew the truth. At 7:45 a.m., I heard her car pull into the driveway. The engine cut off. A door slammed. Her footsteps on the walkway sounded different, somehow hesitant, guilty. The key turned in the lock. I was standing in the kitchen, her laptop open on the counter, my phone beside it with her text message still displayed. I'd made coffee but hadn't touched it. I just stood there, waiting, armor firmly in place around my shattered heart. The door opened. Sarah stepped inside, and I saw her face clearly for the first time in what felt like years. She looked exhausted, her makeup smudged, her work clothes wrinkled. When she saw me standing there, saw the laptop, saw my expression, all color drained from her face. Mark, I don't. My voice came out cold, controlled. Just don't. She took a step forward, hands outstretched. Please, let me explain. Explain what, Sarah? Explain how you've been having an affair. How you've been lying to me for months. How last night, while I sat here terrified something had happened to you, you were with him? My control started to crack. How what you have with Chris is more real than our marriage. Her eyes widened. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You read my messages. You left me no choice. You disappeared. I thought you were dead in a ditch somewhere, and instead you were. I couldn't finish the sentence. The images in my mind were too painful. I wasn't with Chris, she whispered. Don't lie to me anymore. I slammed my hand on the counter, making her jump. I have the evidence right here. Months of it. So please, spare me the gaslighting. Mark, please, if you just listen. I'm calling a lawyer today. I want you out of this house by the weekend. We'll divide everything as fairly as possible, but I can't look at you right now. I can't be in the same room as you. She was sobbing now, reaching for me. No, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I grabbed my keys and wallet. I understand that my wife is a stranger, that the woman I loved doesn't exist, that I've wasted 10 years of my life. I headed for the door, needing to escape before my composure completely crumbled. But Sarah moved quickly, blocking my path, desperation in her eyes. I'm sick, Mark. I'm really sick. I stared at her, unmoved. That's your excuse? You're sick? What, lovesick for Chris? No, her voice broke. I have cancer. The word hung in the air between us, like a grenade with the pin pulled. Cancer. I stood frozen, my hand still on the doorknob, my anger suddenly colliding with confusion and the first creeping tendrils of doubt. What? I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah's face crumpled completely now, tears streaming freely. I have ovarian cancer, Mark. Stage 3. I've known for 4 months. 4 months. The same time frame as the messages with Chris. My mind struggled to process, to reconcile these two seemingly incompatible truths. You're lying. This is just another manipulation. I'm not lying. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, scrolling frantically. Here, look, my medical records. Appointment confirmations. Lab results. She thrust the phone at me, and I found myself staring at a patient portal from City General Hospital. Sarah Donovan. Diagnosis: ovarian carcinoma, stage IIIC. The clinical language blurred before my eyes. I scrolled through test results, imaging reports, treatment plans. All of it dated over the past 4 months. All of it real. I don't understand, I said, my voice hollow. Why wouldn't you tell me? Why would you hide this? She sank onto the stairs, hugging herself. Because I was terrified. Because 4 months ago, when Dr. Mitchell told me, all I could think about was your mother. My mother. The memory hit me like a physical blow. She died of breast cancer when I was 16. A brutal 2-year battle that had destroyed my father almost as much as it destroyed her. I'd watched him become a shell of himself, watched him try to be strong for her while crumbling inside. After she died, he'd lasted only 3 more years before his heart gave out broken. The doctors said, though they meant it metaphorically. But I'd always known it was literal too. I watched what that did to you, Sarah continued, her voice thick. How you still have nightmares about it sometimes. How you freeze up when anyone mentions cancer. I couldn't put you through that again. I couldn't watch you break. So you shut me out instead? Anger flared again, but it was different now, tinged with hurt and confusion. You let me think you were having an affair rather than tell me you were fighting for your life. I was going to tell you, she insisted. I was trying to find the right way, the right time. But then I started treatment, and it was so much harder than I expected. The chemo, the nausea, the fatigue. I could barely get through each day. I kept thinking I'd wait until I felt stronger, until I had better news to share. And Chris? The name tasted bitter. How does Chris fit into your cancer treatment? Sarah took a shaky breath. Chris is Christina Reynolds. She's a patient advocate at the hospital, assigned to help me navigate treatment options and emotional support. She's a cancer survivor herself, ovarian cancer, like me. She beat it 5 years ago. I felt like I'd been punched. Christina, not Christopher, not a male lover, but a female counselor. I grabbed the laptop, looking at the emails again with this new context. Tonight was amazing, suddenly took on a different meaning. When you walked through that door, I knew everything was about to change. Could have been about Sarah agreeing to start chemotherapy. You're incredible the way you handle everything with such grace and strength. Sounded like something one cancer patient might say to another. Last night, Sarah continued, her voice barely audible, I had my first major chemo session, the one that would tell us if the treatment was working. Christina stayed with me the entire time because I was too scared to ask you. Afterward, I got so sick, violently sick. I couldn't drive. I could barely stand. Christina took me to her place and sat with me all night while I threw up and cried, and she broke down completely. I wanted to call you so badly, but I'd already lied for so long, and I didn't know how to explain why I was getting chemo without you knowing I had cancer in the first place. I set the laptop down, my hands numb. Everything I'd thought I knew had been turned inside out. The late nights at work, doctor appointments, lab work, treatment sessions. I scheduled them after office hours so you wouldn't notice I was gone during the day. The client dinners, support group meetings. Christina runs them twice a week. The weekend trip to wine country, a cancer retreat for patients and survivors. Christina thought it would help me prepare mentally for the intensive treatment phase. Sarah looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. I created an entire fake affair to cover up my cancer because I was a coward. Because I was so afraid of what it would do to you, to us, that I destroyed our marriage anyway, trying to protect it. I slumped against the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. My mind raced, trying to reframe every suspicion, every hurt, every moment of betrayal. The protective phone behavior, She'd been hiding medical calls and test results. The distance between us, she'd been dealing with a terminal diagnosis alone. The happiness in that selfie, probably relief at a good test result, or a moment of hope with someone who understood. "You should have told me," I said finally. "Cancer, affair, whatever it was, you should have told me. That's what marriage means, Sarah. We face things together." "I know." She was crying again. "I know that now. I've known it for weeks. I was going to tell you this weekend. I had it all planned. I was going to show you everything, explain everything, beg you to forgive me for lying. But then last night happened, and everything fell apart before I could. What did the chemo results show?" The question came out before I could stop it. Despite everything, the lies, the deception, the night of hell she'd put me through, I needed to know if my wife was dying. Sarah's face transformed. Despite the tears, despite the exhaustion, something like hope flickered in her eyes. "The tumors are shrinking. Dr. Mitchell called this morning. The treatment is working, Mark. I have a real chance." Relief and rage warred inside me. She was going to live. The woman I loved was going to survive. But she'd nearly destroyed us both in the process of trying to protect me from her pain. "I need to see everything," I said. "Every medical record. I want to meet Christina. I want to talk to Dr. Mitchell. I want full access to every part of this that you hid from me. Yes, of course, anything." She started to move toward me and stopped, uncertain. "Mark, I am so sorry. I know I've broken your trust. I know you have every right to hate me. But please believe that I was trying to protect you, not hurt you." "You did both," I said quietly. "You protected me from the knowledge that you had cancer, and you hurt me by letting me believe you'd betrayed our marriage. I don't know which is worse." We sat in silence for a long moment, the morning sun streaming through the windows, illuminating all the cracks in our once solid foundation. Finally, I pushed myself to my feet. "I'm going to make a fresh pot of coffee. Then you're going to tell me everything, every appointment, every test, every symptom, every fear. No more secrets. No more protection. We're in this together now, whether you think I can handle it or not." Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay, together." But as I walked to the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling that while we'd avoided one disaster, we were still standing in the wreckage of another. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. And I didn't know if knowing the truth made the betrayal better or worse. We sat at the kitchen table for hours, the coffee growing cold as Sarah laid out the timeline of her diagnosis and deception. She showed me everything on her phone and laptop: medical records, test results, treatment schedules, messages with Christina that I'd misinterpreted so dramatically. "It started with bloating," she explained, her voice hoarse from crying, "and pain during sex. I thought it was stress or maybe early menopause. I didn't even tell you I was seeing a doctor because I thought it was nothing." I remembered those moments she'd mentioned, times she'd seemed uncomfortable, times she'd pulled away from intimacy. I'd attributed it to work stress, never imagining she was in actual pain. Dr. Mitchell found a mass during a routine pelvic exam. She ordered an ultrasound immediately and a CA-125 blood test. The numbers were high, really high. Sarah pulled up a lab result, showing me values that meant nothing to me but had clearly terrified her. She scheduled surgery for a biopsy, and that's when we found out how bad it was. Stage IIIC. The cancer had spread beyond the ovaries to my abdominal cavity. My coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the tile floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. Why? I asked again, the same question I'd been asking in different ways for the past 2 hours. Why not tell me right then? Why let it get this far? Sarah's hands twisted together. Because the night before the biopsy, you had that nightmare. The one about your mother. You were crying in your sleep, calling out for her. And when you woke up, you looked so devastated, so lost. I held you and thought, I can't do this to him. I can't make him live through this again. That wasn't your choice to make. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. You took away my agency. You decided you knew better than me what I could handle. I know. You're right. It was selfish and stupid, and it was condescending. The word came out harsher than I intended, but it was true. You treated me like a child who needed to be protected from reality. I'm your husband, Sarah, your partner, not some fragile thing that needs to be sheltered. She flinched but nodded. I see that now. Christina said the same thing, actually. She's been telling me for weeks that I needed to come clean, that the lying was worse than the diagnosis. But I was already in so deep. Every day I didn't tell you was another day of deception to explain. It snowballed. I got up to get paper towels for the broken cup, needing a moment to collect myself. As I cleaned up the shards, I thought about all the small moments of distance over the past months. The times she'd seemed distracted or distant. The nights she'd gone to bed early. The foods she'd suddenly stopped eating. The chicken parmesan, I said suddenly. That was your favorite. But you've been avoiding it. Chemo, she confirmed quietly. It changed my taste buds. Made a lot of foods unappetizing. I didn't know how to tell you that either, so I just ... Stopped eating things. And the wine from our honeymoon? Can't drink alcohol during treatment. The jewelry box you left open? I thought you'd been in a hurry. I've been taking off jewelry before treatment sessions. Sometimes I'm too exhausted to put it back properly. Every clue I'd misread now made horrible sense. I'd constructed an entire narrative of betrayal from the fragments of her illness. I want to meet Christina, I said, finishing with a broken cup. Today. Sarah checked her phone. She has office hours at the hospital this afternoon. I can call her now if you want. Do it. While Sarah made the call, I went upstairs to our bedroom, the same room where I'd sat just hours ago, convinced my marriage was over. The laptop was still there, still open to those damning emails that now read completely differently. I scrolled through them again, seeing them through the new lens of truth. Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you, about us. When you walked through that door, I knew everything was about to change. Christina had been welcoming Sarah to our first support group. The door was literal the door to the meeting room. Everything changing referred to Sarah, finally accepting she needed help facing her. Diagnosis. You're incredible the way you handle. Everything with such grace and strength. Support during a difficult treatment session. I think I'm falling for you. Is that crazy? Not romantic love, but the deep bond that forms between people facing death together. The kind of connection cancer survivors often describe intense, profound, life-altering. Not crazy. I feel it too. This thing between us ... It's real. Real friendship. Real support. Real understanding from someone who'd walked the same terrifying path. I'd spent the night creating a phantom. Affair because I couldn't imagine any other explanation for my wife's secrecy. The truth that she was protecting me from her mortality had never crossed my mind. Mark? Sarah appeared in the doorway. Christina can meet us at 2:00. She sounded really worried when I told her you'd misunderstood everything. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, for the first time since she'd come home. She'd lost weight, I realized. Not dramatically, but enough that her clothes hung differently. Her skin had a slight pallor I'd attributed to long work hours. There were shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and physical suffering. How had I missed this? How had I been so blind? Have you been in pain? I asked. Right now, I mean. She hesitated, then nodded. The chemo causes neuropathy. My hands and feet tingle constantly, and I'm nauseous most of the time. Plus just tired. So tired all the time. And you've been hiding all of that while going to work every day, pretending everything was fine. I took a lot of breaks in the bathroom. Worked from home when I could. Monica knows. She's been covering for me at the office when I've needed to leave early. Sarah's voice dropped. She's the only one I told. I swore her to secrecy, which is why she sounded confused when you called last night. She knew I wasn't with her, but she didn't know what to say without betraying my confidence. Another piece clicking into place. Monica had been protecting Sarah's secret, lying by omission, even as I'd been frantic with worry. How many people know? I asked. My doctor, the treatment team, Christina, Monica, and now you. That's it. I haven't told my parents or my sister. I didn't want anyone to worry until I knew if the treatment was going to work. And now that we know it's working, Sarah's face brightened slightly. Now we can start planning for the future instead of just surviving the present. Dr. Mitchell says if the tumors continue shrinking at this rate, I might be in remission by spring. I'll need ongoing monitoring and probably more surgery to remove any remaining affected tissue. But her voice caught. I might actually beat this, Mark. I crossed the room, and for the first time since she dropped the cancer bombshell, I pulled my wife into my arms. She melted against me, her whole body shaking with sobs, relief, fear, exhaustion, grief for what she'd put us both through. We're going to beat this, I corrected her gently. Together. No more secrets. No more protection. You tell me every symptom, every fear, every bad day, and I'll be strong enough to handle it. You have to trust that. I'm sorry, she whispered against my chest. I'm so sorry for everything. I know. But Sarah? I pulled back to look at her. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm relieved you're not having an affair and terrified you have cancer. I'm grateful the treatment is working and furious you hid it from me. I don't know how to feel about any of this. She nodded, tears still streaming. That's fair. That's more than fair. I don't expect you to just forgive me or pretend this didn't happen. I destroyed your trust, and I know rebuilding it will take time. If you even want to try. Did I want to try? 4 hours ago, I'd been ready to file for divorce, convinced our marriage was irretrievably broken. Now I knew the truth, that my wife had been fighting a silent battle against death itself, making terrible choices out of misguided love. The anger was still there. The hurt was still there. But underneath it all, the love remained too. Battered, bruised, tested, but still there. I want to try, I said, but we're doing this my way from now on. Complete transparency. I come to every doctor's appointment. I meet everyone involved in your care. I'm there for every treatment session. And we get counseling, both of us, together. Yes, anything. I promise. And Sarah, if you ever hide something this important from me again, if you ever decide you know better than me what I can handle, we are done. I mean it. I can forgive this once, but I won't live in a marriage when my partner doesn't trust me with the truth. I understand. No more secrets. I promise on everything I love. We stood there holding each other as the morning stretched toward afternoon, two people trying to find their way back to each other across a chasm of fear and lies and love. The path forward wouldn't be easy. The trust would take time to rebuild. But for the first time since she'd walked through the door, I felt a small spark of hope that my wife hadn't betrayed me with another person. She'd betrayed me by trying to shoulder an impossible burden alone. It was still a betrayal, still a wound that would take time to heal. But it was one I could understand, even if I couldn't condone it. We should get ready to meet Christina, Sarah said eventually. I want you to see that she's exactly who I said she is. I believe you, I said. But yes, I want to meet her. I want to understand everything you've been going through. As Sarah went to shower and change, I sat back down with my laptop and deleted the draft message I'd written, the one about divorce papers and broken trust and endings. In its place, I opened a new document and started a different kind of list. Questions for Dr. Mitchell. Treatment side effects to watch for. Nutritional needs during chemotherapy. Support resources for spouses of cancer patients. The divorce wasn't happening. But a different kind of transformation was one that would test us both in ways I couldn't yet imagine. My wife was sick. My wife had lied. My wife was going to survive. And somehow we had to figure out how to navigate all of those truths simultaneously. Christina Reynolds turned out to be nothing like I'd imagined. In my jealous fantasies, I'd pictured someone young and sultry, a temptress luring my wife away. The reality was a woman in her mid-50s with kind eyes, graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and a warm smile that immediately put me at ease, while simultaneously making me feel like the world's biggest idiot. You must be Mark, she said, extending her hand in the hospital's patient advocacy center. I'm so glad to finally meet you. Sarah's told me so much about you. I wish I could say the same, I replied, shaking her hand. But I only learned you existed this morning. Christina's expression became sympathetic. Sarah told me about the misunderstanding. For what it's worth, I've been encouraging her to come clean for weeks now. Sometimes when people are faced with their own mortality, they make choices that don't make sense to anyone else. Fear does strange things to our judgment. We sat in her office, Sarah between us, as Christina walked me through everything she'd been doing with my wife over the past 4 months. Support group meetings, treatment education, emotional counseling, practical advice on managing symptoms and side effects. She showed me her credentials, a master's in social work, 15 years as a patient advocate, and her own 5-year cancer survival anniversary. Ovarian cancer is particularly insidious, Christina explained, pulling out educational materials. It's called the silent killer because symptoms are often vague and easily dismissed. By the time most women are diagnosed, it's already advanced. Sarah was lucky, if you can call cancer lucky, that her gynecologist was thorough and caught it when she did. Stage 3 doesn't sound lucky, I said. Stage 3 is survivable, especially with the aggressive treatment protocol Sarah's on. Stage 4 is where things become much more complicated. Christina looked at Sarah with obvious affection. Your wife is a fighter, Mark. She's been incredibly brave through all of this. She shouldn't have had to be brave alone, I said quietly. No, Christina agreed. She shouldn't have. But she was trying to protect you from pain, which, while misguided, comes from a place of deep love. My job now is to help both of you navigate this together. We spent 2 hours in Christina's office. She explained Sarah's treatment schedule, more chemo sessions over the next 3 months, followed by a CT scan to assess the tumor's response, then likely surgery to remove any remaining cancer cells and affected tissue. She talked about side effects I should watch for, warning signs that might require emergency care, and emotional challenges we'd face as a couple. Cancer doesn't just affect the patient, Christina said. It affects the entire family system. Mark, you're going to experience fear, anger, helplessness, and probably a fair amount of resentment at times. Those feelings are normal and valid. Sarah, you're going to feel guilty for being sick, frustrated with your body, and probably alternately need Mark desperately and want him to leave you alone. That's normal too. She handed us both pamphlets about couples counseling and support groups for spouses of cancer patients. I strongly recommend you both engage with these resources. This is going to be one of the hardest things you'll ever face together. Don't try to do it in isolation. After leaving the hospital, Sarah and I sat in the parking lot for a long time. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement, and the world felt simultaneously too large and too small. "What happens now?" Sarah asked finally. "Now we go home," I said. "We order takeout because neither of us has the energy to cook. We sit down and create a calendar with all your appointments, so I can plan to be there for every single one. And tomorrow, we start calling therapists." "And us?" Her voice was small, uncertain. "Are we going to be okay?" I took a long breath before answering. "I don't know. I want us to be. I love you, Sarah. I never stopped loving you, not even when I thought you were having an affair. But you hurt me badly. You lied to me for months. You let me believe something that wasn't true, because you didn't trust me to handle the truth. I know. Let me finish." I turned to face her fully. "I understand why you did it. I even understand the twisted logic that made it seem like the right choice. But understanding doesn't mean I'm not hurt. It doesn't mean I'm not angry. We have a lot of work to do to rebuild what you broke." Tears rolled down her cheeks again. "I know. I'll do whatever it takes. What it takes is honesty. Complete, total honesty from this point forward. No more protecting me. No more deciding what I can and can't handle. You treat me like your partner in this fight, not like someone on the sidelines who needs to be sheltered." "I promise," she said firmly. "Complete honesty, no matter how scary or hard the truth is. And I promise to be strong enough to handle it," I countered. "I promise not to fall apart just because things get difficult. We're going to get through this, Sarah. The cancer, the broken trust, all of it. But we do it together." She reached for my hand, and I let her take it. Her grip was weak the neuropathy Christina had mentioned, but determined. "Together," she repeated. We drove home as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The house looked the same as it had when I'd left that morning, a lifetime ago, it seemed. But everything felt different. The dinner I'd made last night still sat on the counter, and I threw it away without ceremony. That meal had been for a different couple, one who didn't know yet what they'd be facing. Sarah sat on the couch while I pulled up my phone to order food. "What sounds good?" "And don't say you're not hungry. Christina said you need to keep your strength up. Thai food, maybe? The mild curry doesn't upset my stomach too much. Thai it is." I placed the order, then sat beside her. "Tell me about the support group. What's it like?" She seemed surprised by the question, but answered. "Scary at first. Everyone there is dealing with different cancers, different stages. Some are newly diagnosed like I was. Others have been fighting for years. A few are double quotes," she trailed off. "Dying," I finished quietly. "Yeah, but it's not all grim. There's a lot of dark humor, actually. Inside jokes about hair loss and chemo brain. People bring food, the weird things they can still taste and enjoy. And there's this incredible sense of understanding. When I talk about being terrified of every ache and pain, wondering if the cancer's spreading, they all just ... Get it. No explanation needed. I want to come to the next meeting," I said. "If that's allowed. They have sessions for caregivers too. We could both go. Then we will." The food arrived, and we ate mostly in silence. Sarah managed about half her curry before pushing it away with an apologetic grimace. "The nausea hits worst in the evenings." "I'm sorry." "Stop apologizing for being sick," I said gently. "Save your food. You can heat it up tomorrow if you feel better." After dinner, I pulled up my laptop and created a shared calendar, color-coded and detailed. Blue for doctor appointments. Green for chemo sessions. Yellow for support groups. Red for important test results and scans. This is very organized, Sarah observed, watching me work. Someone has to be, I replied with a small smile. And apparently, you've been trying to manage all of this in your head for 4 months. From now on, we both know what's coming and when. I added every appointment from her phone, every treatment date Christina had mentioned. The calendar filled up alarmingly fast. She had something medical scheduled nearly every other day for the next 3 months. How have you been going to work through all of this? I asked, incredulous. Very carefully. And Monica's been amazing about covering for me. I'll need to tell work soon, though. Request formal medical leave for the surgery. We'll do that together, too. Draft the email tonight. Send it tomorrow. As the evening wore on, exhaustion caught up with both of us. Sarah could barely keep her eyes open, the chemo fatigue Christina had warned about. I helped her upstairs, steadying her when she swayed slightly on the steps in our bedroom. I helped her change into pajamas, trying not to notice how much weight she'd lost, how fragile she seemed. When she was settled in bed, I lay down beside her, and she immediately curled into me. Mark? Yeah? Thank you for not leaving. I know you had every right to walk away this morning. I'm grateful you didn't. I kissed the top of her head. I thought about it. I was ready too. But then you told me the truth, and I realized that while you'd lied about a lot of things, you'd been telling the truth about one thing all along. What's that? That you love me. Everything you did, as misguided and hurtful as it came from love. Stupid, fearful, protective love, but love nonetheless. I paused. Though if you ever pull something like this again, I'm following through on those divorce papers. She gave a weak laugh. Fair enough. No more secrets. I promise. No more secrets, I agreed. She fell asleep within minutes, her breathing deep and steady. I lay awake longer, staring at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. My wife was sick. My wife was going to survive. My wife had lied to me. My wife had tried to protect me. All of it was true. All of it mattered. Tomorrow, I'd call into work and explain the situation. I'd start researching ovarian cancer more thoroughly, educate myself on what Sarah was facing. I'd find us a good couples therapist and make appointments. I'd be the partner she needed, strong, supportive, honest. But tonight, I just held her while she slept, grateful that despite everything, the fear, the lies, the hurt, the cancer, we still had each other. We still had the chance to fight this together. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be hard treatments and harder conversations. There would be days when the cancer seemed insurmountable, and days when the broken trust felt irreparable. But we'd face it all together. No more secrets, no more protection. Just two people who loved each other enough to weather the storm. As I finally drifted off to sleep, my last thought was that sometimes the biggest betrayals come not from malice, but from misplaced love. And sometimes forgiveness means acknowledging that people make terrible choices while trying to do the right thing. The morning had started with me ready to end my marriage. It was ending with me more committed to it than ever, but with my eyes wide open to both its flaws and its strength. My wife hadn't come home that night, but she'd come back to me in the ways that mattered most. And that, I was beginning to realize, was enough. The cherry blossoms were blooming in the park where Sarah and I took our Sunday walks. She moved slowly, still recovering from her surgery 3 weeks prior. But there was color in her cheeks again and strength in her grip as she held my hand. Dr. Mitchell called yesterday with the final pathology, she said as we sat on our favorite bench. Clean margins. No cancer detected in any of the tissue they removed. I'm officially in remission. I pulled her close, feeling tears prick my eyes. That's incredible. That's... God, Sarah, You did it. You beat it. We beat it, she corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. These past 6 months, having you there for every appointment, every treatment, every scary moment, it made all the difference. We'd come a long way from that awful morning when I thought our marriage was over. Couples therapy had been brutal at times, forcing us both to confront painful truths. I'd had to admit that I'd sometimes used my mother's death as a shield, avoiding difficult emotional conversations by claiming they were too hard for me. Sarah had had to confront her tendency to control situations by withholding information, thinking she was protecting people when she was really just protecting herself from their reactions. But slowly, painfully, we'd rebuilt our foundation. The trust wasn't completely restored. That would take more time, but it was healing. And in its place, we'd built something new. Radical honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. I got an email from Christina this morning, Sarah continued. She's starting a new support program for couples dealing with cancer. She asked if we'd consider sharing our story, both the cancer journey and the other part. The part where you let me think you were cheating on you while you were actually dying? I asked with a wry smile. We'd learned to joke about it, though the humor was still sometimes sharp-edged. Yeah, that part. She thinks it might help other people who are tempted to hide their diagnosis from their partners. Show them what can happen when secrets spiral out of control. I thought about it. Would you be comfortable with that? Having people know what happened? I think so. If it helps even one person avoid making my mistakes, it's worth it. She looked at me. What do you think? I think we should do it, but on one condition. What's that? We emphasized that the lying was never okay, even if it came from love. That protection isn't the same as partnership. That the people we love deserve the truth, even when it's terrifying. Agreed, Sarah said. Complete honesty, always. We sat in comfortable silence, watching other couples walk by, families with children, elderly people feeding ducks in the pond. All of them with their own stories, their own struggles hidden beneath the surface. You know what I realized? I said eventually. That night when you didn't come home, I was ready to give up everything we built over a lie. But the truth, the actual truth about your cancer, that was something I'd fight for. It's funny how that works. It's not funny, Sarah said quietly. It's human. We can forgive almost anything except deception. Because once trust is broken, everything else falls apart. But it can be rebuilt, I added. It's not easy, and it's not quick, but it can be rebuilt. We're proof of that. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you, Mark. Thank you for giving us a second chance. I love you too, I replied. But remember, no more secrets, we said in unison, then laughed out as we walked home. I thought about that terrible morning 6 months ago when I'd been ready to end our marriage. I thought about the divorce papers I'd almost filed, the lawyer consultations I'd bookmarked, the future I'd imagined without Sarah in it, and I thought about the future we had now instead uncertain, imperfect, but honest. Sarah would need regular monitoring for years, living with the constant awareness that cancer could return. We'd both need continued therapy to work through the trauma of those 4 months of lies and the 6 months of treatment that followed. Our marriage bore scars that would never fully fade, but we were together. We were honest. We were healing. Sometimes the worst nights lead to the most important mornings. Sometimes what looks like betrayal is actually fear wearing a disguise. And sometimes love means forgiving the unforgivable, not because it wasn't that bad, but because the person who hurt you is trying desperately to become someone who never would again. My wife hadn't come home that night. But in the morning, when the truth finally came to light, I discovered that she'd never really left. She'd been fighting a battle I couldn't see, making choices I couldn't understand, all while trying to protect me from the very pain her protection caused. we'd both learned our lessons. Mine, that people deserve truth even when it's hard. Hers, that protection without partnership is just another form of abandonment. And together, we'd learned the most important lesson of all, that marriage isn't about never making mistakes. It's about choosing, every single day, to face the truth together, no matter how terrifying it might be. The cherry blossoms fell like snow around us as we walked home, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, together.